So now it's time to sculpt our cut a bit more. In this section, we're going to look through our footage and shot choices, and we're going to clean things up a little bit. There are three main goals we want to achieve in this lesson. First, we want to fix any jump cuts we currently have. As a reminder, a jump cut is a cut in film editing in which two sequential shots of the same subject are taken from camera positions that vary only slightly. Next, we want to make sure that we're clearly telling the story. This means that we need to be certain that all the actions in the scene are covered with camera angles that clearly show the action taking place, and they flow logically from one shot to the next. Remember the rule of clarity that we talked about earlier? The first part of which says, don't confuse the viewer. That's the most important part. The third and final goal of this lesson is to see if we can liven up the scene a bit more by adding a few more angles and shots here and there. This might mean adding another angle on a punch being thrown to give it a bit more of an energetic feel, or it might mean showing a cool fight move from more than one angle to highlight it, like when Dan flips Rollins onto the ground, or when TT hits Dan over the head with the bottle at the end of the fight. I'd also like to mention, this lesson covers a lot of editing tactics, and as a result is rather long. If you feel like you're ready to begin editing your own scene before the lesson's over, feel free to skip to the end, review your homework assignment, and get started editing. I promise, you won't hurt my feelings. Much. Alright, so let's load up the sequence as we left off with it in the last lesson, in the blocking in lesson. And you can see I just tacked the phrase blocking in at the end of this sequence. We're going to go up a version for every lesson that we work with and every lesson that we make changes to our cut with. And I'm going to label each one of them according to what lesson's techniques it reflects. And that way we can kind of backtrack or compare versions of the cut really easily. So here's where we left off last time.
We got our money now, just leave us alone.
Get in the fucking warehouse, motherfucker. Now. Wait. Hey.
Alright, so that's our full fight fully blocked in, with just kind of crude shot choices, but it all tells the story and it gets the point across. So now in this lesson, obviously it's called adding more camera angles, so that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and first duplicate the sequence, and we're going to go up to version 2. I'm just going to tack the phrase adding more angles onto the end of it. Load it up. All right. So let's start at the beginning of the fight.
We got our money now, just leave us alone.
Get in the fucking warehouse, motherfucker. Now.
All right. So that's the first section that I feel like we could benefit from another shot. So what I'd like to do is I want TT to say his line.
Get in the fucking warehouse, motherfucker. Now.
And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to show Dan and Erica listening towards the end of that line and kind of feeling a little bit uneasy about the threat. Because as it is right now, he says his line, TT says his line, and then we immediately go to him, issuing his little command to Rollins to attack Dan. And there's nothing in between that really shows that Dan and Erica have felt threatened or absorbed any of this information that TT just said to them. So I think that's a good, important story beat that we include. So let's look for a shot of Dan and Erica kind of standing there reacting. And this camera angle is actually probably a good one that we've already used. And there might be something in here. Well, as a matter of fact, I know that there's something in here that we can use that shows him reacting to him. Let's see. I'm going to load it up from here. Yeah, and this is the little area where I just felt like it was a nice little section because Erica looks a bit uneasy and nervous. Dan seems like he's kind of thinking about what his options are at this point. And it's really before any action starts to take place. So I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to grab it starting around the blink, because that's always a good place to make a relatively cold cut, is at least on some eye movement. Alright, so in to out, we'll drop it in here. Now, for this lesson, I want to point out that what I'm going to be doing, the way I'm going to be dropping these additional angles into our sequence, is I'm going to be dropping both the video and the audio onto new tracks. And there's going to be some overlap of the audio and video of the old shots and then of the new shots, but we're going to clean that up in the next lesson. So what I mean by this is...
Fucker, now.
All right. So before he starts this now, so see, now I went up to video track layer 2 for my video, and I dropped audio, my stereo audio, down to 3 and 4. So we're not going to overwrite anything that we already have. And see how it looks.
Fucking warehouse, motherfucker, now.
All right, that's pretty good. Dan starts to make a little bit of a move here, so I'm just going to roll this a little bit so he doesn't start his move quite yet.
Fucking warehouse, motherfucker, now.
All right, and you know, we could, like as always, we can tweak this a bit more, and this is not the stage to be doing too much tweaking. So I'm going to leave this as is. But you can see, just by looking at the waveform, that we have audio information now from basically two kind of different moments in the scene that are kind of overlapping each other. In the next lesson, the clean up the rough cut, we're going to decide which one is most relevant to the picture, and we're going to remove the other one. And then we'll obviously be dropping down our video and bringing our audio up and starting to kind of clean up the cut a little bit. But for now, we'll just leave it all the way it is, and that way we can make our choices later. Turn this waveform back off. All right, so let's keep going.
Ow. Wait. Hey.
Okay, so here's the second thing, second shot that we're going to add. So now, right here, you can see that Dan starts to look back at Erica, and that's what allows Rollins to kind of get a leg up on him and do his sucker punch. So I'd like to get a different angle. I'd like to get an angle from Rollins' point of view, showing Dan looking back to Erica. And I believe this angle will, this medium shot will probably contain the information that we need.
Wait!
Yeah, so that's kind of what I want to show. I want to show that from this angle. So it's really obvious that Dan is turning his back to his opponent and opening himself up for this sucker punch that's about to happen. All right. That's good. And we'll probably drop it right as he starts to turn. Oops. All right, so now let's time this out a little bit better here. As a matter of fact, yeah, that's the way to do it. All right, so we have Rollins backing off. Oh hey ho, whatever he says. Then Dan, we have him looking back at Erica. You can see Rollins starts his movement here. Cut back to a front shot of Rollins as he initiates his punch, and then we alternate the angle with the follow through of the punch of Dan getting hit, and that works pretty well.
Wait! Hey.
So It's like we always say with the rule of clarity. This definitely provides a bit more of the concrete visual information showing exactly what's happening. If we had shown Dan from this angle turning back to Erica, it wouldn't be quite as clear what's happening. We wouldn't know that he's necessarily looking at Erica. It just kind of looks like he's distracted and just wandering his gaze a little bit, which isn't the most effective the most effective setup for Rollins to attack him. It's a little bit more emotionally impactful if he's looking back to protect his girlfriend. All right. So we got the punch. Now Dan starts his counterattack. He's got a quick punch there to Rollins, and then a big punch to Rollins' face, and then TT comes in and attacks. So what I'd like to do here is I want to punch in, no pun intended, a little bit closer on this whole action sequence, maybe to a medium close-up shot, and show Dan's punches back in a little bit more of a clear way. And I think it'll also make it a little bit more interesting to watch, because these punches look a little bit slow, and Dan doesn't look like he's exerting that much force. So I think if we zoom in on everything a little bit, it's going to feel a little bit more impactful. So let's go to the medium close-up shot of this whole angle here, which is going to be 10J take 3, the medium close-up. All right, and I have it marked here. So you can see this is the same moment. Dan's looking back. He gets punched by Rollins, and then here's where Dan starts his counterattack. And we'll have to kind of figure out, where exactly in the motion is the best way to incorporate it. But let's start with this. All right. So what we have here is Dan finishing his recoil from being hit, and small punch and big punch. So we'll drop it in. Here's his recoil from being hit. Oh, and a point of detail I should point out is that you can see that Dan's glasses get knocked off here. So obviously in this take is from just a different camera from the same exact take. And that's why his glasses are also off here. You wouldn't want to use a different take where his glasses didn't fall off, because obviously that would create a continuity problem. That's pretty obvious, but I figured I should just mention it. All right, so let's drop it in here. Good, that works pretty well. All right, so let's just roll this out. And I think this could all be timed a little bit better. Create the beats and the pauses a little bit in a little bit more of an elegant way. It seems like it kind of just moves through the fight really quickly right now, but that's something that we can deal with a little bit later. So let me play what we have so far.
Get in the fucking warehouse, motherfucker. Now. Wait. Hey, oh.
All right, it's working better. It's definitely a little bit more interesting to watch, and it's definitely a little bit more clear about what's happening. And those are two of our main goals here in this lesson. So we're doing a good job. All right, so we got the kick from TT. Dan reacts. TT begins his punch to Dan and knocks him to the ground. Let's take a look at the second take here. 10L take 2. Let's see if there's anything better of Dan on the ground, but it works pretty well the way it is. Okay. I think we actually should cut away at this moment here. The reason is this. So here we have TT kicking Dan and then punching Dan. And it's clear that Dan gets hit. It's clear that Dan ends up on the ground. But what isn't clear is the spatial kind of positioning of the other characters in the scene. So we have all this empty space right here in the frame. It'd be nice if we could see Erica standing here. And we could know that she's right here. She's close to the danger. And Dan needs to hurry up and get up, because that's exactly what he does at this point. TT and his cronies kind of go over for Erica, and Dan tries to protect her from being attacked by him, which isn't going to be very clear right here because you can't see anything. I mean, obviously a new shot, but now they kind of teleported in distance, it looks like, based on this next shot, Erica should be standing right about here, and she's not. So let's look at this scene, or this shot here, 10L, take 2. It's a medium close-up, and we can see that after the follow-through of the punch, Dan falls to the ground. He falls close to Erica, and then you can see all of what's going on, all from this one angle. So let's go ahead and halfway through the motion of TT's punch, let's see if we can cut to a different shot. Or perhaps even just use a different shot of the punch. That's probably a cleaner way of doing it. Alright, so let's drop this in. So we'll let TT start his punch here in this existing medium shot that we have. And then instead of 10L take 1, I'd like to see if we can use 10L take 2. That's nice. That's clean. And then there's Erica right there. Alright, so let's roll it out a little bit. Alright, so as soon as Dan starts to get up, that'll kind of match up with this next shot. Let's see how this looks. Alright, that's working good. Alright, and now one more additional shot that we should just add right in between here, where Dan reaches for TT, and here, where TT gets to Erica. I think in this 10L take 2 medium close-up shot, there's actually a nice angle on Dan grabbing at TT's pants leg. A little bit more close-up than this. So you can really see that he's trying to stop him from getting to Erica. So if we can add that in there, it'll make the story even that much clearer. Right here. So again, this is 10L take 2, the medium close-up that we had just added. So we're going to drop in, cut into a little bit later during the shot and add this to our sequence. So we'll let Dan roll around the ground. TT starts going for Erica. Dan's hand starts going for TT. And then right here is where we'll drop in our new shot. Great. So Dan reaches for TT. You can see there's a little bit of overlap here in the motion. We can clean that up if we want to, or it might just feel nice stylistically once we add the music later. TT continues for Erica, and then Mouth begins his kick into Dan on the ground. All right, so let's see how this flows with what we've just added. All right, so a problem I'm seeing is that, so we got Dan falling down to the ground. TT moves towards Erica, okay? Dan reaches towards TT, great. Dan basically continues the same motion and grabs TT's pants legs. The problem here is that now TT has already grabbed Erica. And in the next shot, where we really want to see TT clearly grabbing Erica, he's starting a little bit too early in the motion. So it's too much motion overlap. He's clearly already grabbed her here, and then he's just beginning to grab her here. So what I want to do is I want to roll this shot of TT grabbing Erica back just a few frames. So he's already grabbed her, but let's, and we want to show him grabbing her here. So it's kind of tough to show the pants leg grab and the Erica grab both at the same time. Or I'm sorry, both in sequence, because they kind of happen at the same time. But what we can do is cheat it just a little bit. So if TT grabs Erica, if he's at least a little bit closer to making contact with her, it's not going to feel quite as strange. So I roll it back maybe 4 frames there. Let's see how that looks. I don't know. It's still a little bit weird. I'm going to cut out 2 more frames. And I'm going to roll this back one more. Yeah, I think that's really all it needed, and that could have been something that we dealt with later during our fine tuning and polishing phase. But it is working better now, so that's good. We got that taken care of. All right, so the next thing we need to address here. So Dan grabs TT's pants leg. TT grabs Erica. Mouth comes in and starts to kick Dan in the stomach on the ground. So here's the issue. We see that somebody, probably Mouth, is kicking somebody, probably Dan. And then here we can sort of see that it is Dan, but again, we lack clarity in this moment. So we need to add a shot that clarifies who's being kicked and who's doing the kicking, or at least who's being kicked. So we need a shot of Dan on the ground. So let's look back at this 10L take 2 medium close-up shot. All right, and you can see here, this is familiar territory, right? Because we've already seen Dan from this angle, and now we're seeing him again being kicked. So let's see if we can add this follow-through on Mouth's kick to the end of this kicking motion and really solidify the fact that it's Dan being impacted by the foot or leg or whatever he's kicking him with. Shin, I think. All right, so let's drop it in. And this is going to require some finesse because this is nearly a jump cut, if not exactly a jump cut. But I think we can make this work because of all the movement on the screen. All right, so let's drop in our shot. And I am going to insert edit this and roll things and push things down a little bit. All right, we don't need the rest of Mouth's kick from the original angle, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, let's see how this looks. It's not bad. We'll play with it more later. So what's happening now is that now Erica's been thrown to the side. TT and Mouth are going to start kicking at Dan on the ground. Dan blocks a kick. Here he locks up TT's leg and punches up and uppercuts Mouth, which is a pretty clear miss right there, I'd say. So we're going to want to cut around to a different shot on that so it doesn't look like such a miss. So the first thing I want to do is I want to see what type of angles we have on this block from Dan, because it's an important moment. It's important to show that he's defending himself and he's active in the fight and not just a passive kind of punching bag. So let's see if there's anything that really clearly shows this block better. So we're going to check 10L take 3, the medium close-up. Yeah, and I think that's probably why I marked this, because that's a really nice angle on the block. It tells about the same information, but I would say this is just a more interesting shot. It clearly silhouettes the two characters better here. There's a lot of overlap, and this might be a little bit visually confusing to look at, especially when the cut starts happening more quickly. This is really easy to process because the two forms are very clear as far as what's happening, because the background isn't cluttered as it is right here with all the brick on the wall. All right, so let's use the block from this angle, 10L3 medium close-up. So we'll get a couple kicks in here, or one kick at least. And I'll tell you right now, what I'd like to do here is add a really wide shot, one of our establishing shots of the alley of these guys kicking down on the ground, showing Erica thrown to the side, sitting against the wall, maybe even a reaction shot or two from her. But we'll be adding those later. So there is going to be a little bit more pummeling. We're going to extend the length of him being kicked and whatnot on the ground through the use of a wide shot. For now, though, we're just going to have him get kicked once and then block. So there's the first kick. And then we'll see how we can fit a block into this here. All right. And there's where he locks up TT's leg. I think we're going to need that. So I'm just going to lift that out. Let's take the block, mark it in, mark it out, and drop it in and see how it looks. All right, so now later on, once we have our music rhythm going, and once we kind of have our sound design punctuating and accenting these attacks and movements a little bit more later, it's going to create a rhythm that we're going to want to adhere to at least a little bit. So the reason I'm saying that is that right now we have a block or a kick, something happening right there, and then we have another block or kick happening right there. Let's just say, for example, that right now they are 9 frames apart. But later on, when we add a music bed or something like that, the beats of the music are 14 frames apart. Well, we'd probably want to just make it so that the first kick and then the first block both fall on a nice music beat so that everything's cut to the rhythm and feels good and natural and rhythmic. So what we would want to do later is push the block back a few frames just so it falls in line with the music. Since we don't know what that's going to be quite yet, we can just do whatever feels good right now and then plan on tweaking it later. All right, so the next beat of the fight now is obviously that Dan is going to lock up TT's leg and then uppercut mouth. So I think actually what we're going to do is the lockup here, where he grabs TT's leg, seems to work pretty good. It's pretty obvious that he's doing something. With the addition of a sound effect or a cracking sound or twisting sound and some sort of pain grunt from TT, it's going to be obvious that Dan did something harmful to his leg. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this hole up here, and we'll just use it as is for now. All right, that's way too tight though. Let me give this a little bit more space. Here Dan starts to move for TT. I think the problem here, I think what we need to do, okay, so here's the issue. So basically we have 2 medium close-up shots here. The angle's too similar, and the camera distance is too similar. So it's creating what feels like a jump cut. So what we need to do is we need to bounce out to a medium shot somewhere in between the block of the kick and the lockup of the leg. And that's going to buy us a little bit of time to let the motion kind of naturally follow through and transition into a second motion. So from the block to the lockup. And it's also going to give our eye a natural, break in the similarity of these 2 shots. So what we need to do is, this is 10L take 3, the medium close-up. This is 10J take 2, the medium close-up. We need to find either a medium shot of either one of these that will allow us to punch out a little bit. So let's go back actually, and we'll look at this 10J take 3 medium shot and see if we can use something from here. I'm going to play this and then I'll describe what I think has made this work now. All right, so that works better for sure. So here's what's gone on. So Dan blocks or moves up to block TT's kick. We have a clear shot of him blocking the kick, which we can play with a little bit on the timing. As a matter of fact, we'll just roll that back a little bit here, or trim it back. Great. So he blocks the kick. He's moving back. He's bringing his leg back after his kick was blocked. Mouth comes in for his kick. And then TT comes in for another kick, and that's where Dan starts to do something here, grabbing his leg. You see him definitely grab the leg here, and then we move into the rest of the scene. So to solve this was a matter of alternating camera angles and distances, and it was also a matter of making sure that we had a shot on each part of this fight that clearly showed what was happening. And we basically have that now. And it's going to be even more clear, again, once we have sound design to accentuate the moments that are occurring, such as block sound effects and bone crunch sound effects and grunts and whatnot. Great. That feels good. That feels natural. So only a brief hiccup. Couple mistakes during the editing process, but you know, it's about correcting them and moving forward and not getting stuck on them, right? All right, so let's keep going. So I think I remember our next problem was this, right? So that does not look natural. We need to find a better angle of mouth getting fake punched. All right. So now let's see what we can do with this whole uppercut situation. Now, I'll save us both some time. I looked through pretty much all the uppercut shots where Mouth was attacked by Dan. And the only one that I found to really work well, both in the fact that it was convincing choreography and that it cut nicely in our sequence here, was this one here. It's 10J take 2. And this is a medium shot. So you can see, all right, so you can see the first half of this looks great. The second half falls apart a little bit. However, from this angle, the first half of it looks horrible and the second part looks great. So obviously you can see where I'm going with this. So let's try this. What we're going to do, we're going from 10J take 2, all right? So Dan knocks TT to the ground. By locking up his leg. He turns to face Mouth, he begins his uppercut, and then knocks Mouth to the ground. So right as Dan's turning to face Mouth here, we're going to punch into 10J take 2, this medium shot. So we'll mark it in. We'll take it all the way to the point where Dan makes contact with Mouth. Just going to go ahead and insert edit that. And then we're going to pick it back up right about here. Where Mouth is falling backwards. So let's see how this looks. It's good. It's a little quick, particularly with this fallback shot here. Let's see, I'm just going to roll it back a little bit to see how. Yeah, what was that? It's like 2 frames, I think. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to trim this out 2 frames. All right, so here's something I want to point out. So, okay, we got this working great. It looks good now. There's no jump cuts. The choreography and the fight is convincing. So that's good. But listen to this. You can hear a little bit of a stutter. Did you hear that right here? All right, so the reason for that is that we're going from basically 2 camera angles that have the same exact audio bed because they were filmed simultaneously, right? So this is the medium close-up and this is the medium. So, you know, that means that there is a point between these 2 shots where the follow-through could be completely flawless if we set it up that way. And what we can use to determine that, because we can see that the audio is identical, is we'll just use the waveforms to line up the, to actually line up the shots. This could easily be done with timecode. I've just found that sometimes when working, a nice quick way of doing it is just using the waveforms. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this out, move this back a little bit until the waveforms visually line up. Which looks to be right about here. Cut out there, get rid of this, pop it back. Well, we don't need to yet, but. And this should be pretty seamless now. A little bit smoother that way. And, you know, of course, once we add our sound design and sound effects later, it's going to feel great. And music, of course. Alright, so anyway, so that's just a kind of a cool trick you can use sometimes if you get stuck. Or if you need to line something up real fast. Alright, let's keep going. So now we basically have TT kicking Dan in the back, knocks him to the ground. He's going to pick him back up. Dan's going to lock up his elbow and then knock TT to the ground and then go back to fighting with Mouth and Rollins. So let's see what we can do if there's any angles that help improve this section. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to find a better angle or a more close-up angle of TT actually performing his kick. Because that way we'll get a little bit more of his facial expression, showing the effort that he's putting into the kick, and we know that it's kind of a vicious blow, and it just kind of clarifies once more who's doing what. So let's go ahead and we'll check out the medium close-up of this whole 10K scene. We're going to check out 10K take 2, the medium close-up. And here's a nice angle on TT. Begins his kick. We're going to drop it in right here. Keep my audio tracks organized for now. Roll this back a couple frames. All right, and now what I'm going to do, similar to before with the uppercut, I'm just going to cut back to the medium shot of this same exact scene and take, and we'll be able to match this cut exactly. So we'll go from 10K take 2 medium close up to 10K take 2 medium. We'll drop this in. And again, if you want to, you can use the waveform trick, or you can just eyeball it, or you can use timecode. Since we just did the waveform trick, I'll just do it one more time just to kind of drive it home a little bit. You can see it's pretty much already lined up, I think. Yeah, it was maybe a frame off. You can tell right here. So I'll screw to frame that way. Now we're nice and lined up. Roll this forward. Get rid of these audio tracks that we don't need. And let's see how it looks. I'll close this up first. All right, let's check it out.
Get up, you
Cool. All right. So once Dan hits the ground, you can see at this point he starts to push himself back up. I don't want him to do that. I want him to hit the ground, and then I want TT to begin picking him up before Dan can start any sort of recovery.
Get up, you Get up.
So right about here, before Dan starts to push off with his hands, we're going to cut away. Obviously, we don't need this shot anymore. So we'll go straight to TT's hands.
Get up. Get up.
All right, now you can hear that TT starts to say a line here. I'm going to roll it out and see what he says. I think it's "Get up, you fucking piece of shit."
Get up, you fucking piece of shit. Get up, you fucking piece of shit.
All right. So this is happening a little bit too quickly. So since I don't want to hold on the shot when Dan starts to push himself back off, which is this shot here, we'll just extend the head of the shot where TT grabs him. And that'll also give TT a little bit more time to say his line and a little bit more time to step into frame.
Get up, you fucking piece of shit.
Great. So that's more natural. The timing of it feels like it's actually happening.
Get up, you fucking piece of shit.
Cool. All right, great. This is working really well. All right, so let's check this out. So this is where Dan locks up TT's elbow. Then he palm strikes TT in the face and throws him to the ground. Now, one thing I can say for sure right here is that this palm strike to TT's face is super lame. TT barely reacts, and it looks pretty fake. So we need to find a better palm strike, right? The one that I found that works really well is actually in 10K take 2 medium close-up. So it's the same angle that we had been playing with earlier for when TT kicked Dan in the back. So check this out. So that's good, right? I mean, you can see the TT, the timing is nice. TT's head recoils nicely. It looks like a really powerful, vicious strike. And then he transitions well into tossing TT onto the ground. So we're going to use this take for the palm strike. All right, so obviously there's an issue here, right? I don't know if you've seen it yet, but the issue is this. We're going from medium close-up shot to a medium close-up shot. So we got a jump cut. All right, so what's that mean? That means that we need a medium shot somewhere in between here. We need to alternate either the angle or the camera distance. In this case, I know that we only have pretty much this type of angle from this direction on this fight. So what we're going to need to do is just alter the camera distance. So we've currently been on 10L take 3, the medium close-up. So when he goes and locks up his arm right here, let's just cut out to the medium shot. And then we can go back into the medium close-up again afterwards. And that way we won't have a jump. So we're going to go from 10L take 3, the medium close-up that we've been working with, to 10L take 3, the medium shot. And this is a good place to cut, obviously, because it's on movement. So it'll be a nice, smooth cut. Again, we could use our waveform trick here, or a time code, but I think it's pretty obvious, based on the visuals, where our cut should occur. So I'm going to cut into it here. Have him complete his motion, start pulling his hand back, and then we'll cut to our medium close-up afterwards where the palm strike occurs. Picks him up, locks up his elbow, palm strike, throws him. All right, let's see how this looks.
Get up, you fucking piece of shit!
All right, it's a little bit quick, right? It seems like I wonder what would happen if we gave a little bit more time and kind of doubled up on this motion a little bit as he stands up, just to let him recover himself a little bit more. Yeah, that doesn't work. You can hear the double whoosh, right? All right, let's try that. What I ended up doing was only overlapping them by about a frame. Okay, that's working well for now. We got a good palm strike. We don't have any jump cuts, and we've kept the action kind of flowing nicely, and the energy's up nice and high because of the different angles and the quick movement on the shots. At this point, I'm going to do a little bit of time-lapse editing just to kind of speed up this process a little bit, and I'll go ahead and narrate over top of the editing and explain to you exactly what's going on. So take a look, and I will catch up with you in a few minutes. So you can see the first thing I did was basically drop in a medium shot, continuing the motion of Dan throwing TT off to the side. Then we connect that with the fight between Dan and Mouth and Rollins, where Dan basically turns his attention towards Mouth as Mouth's attacking him. He blocks a hit, and then he hits Mouth back. So I drop that all in, finesse it a little bit, make sure everything connects nicely. And then what I chose to do actually was I wanted to upcut this a little bit because there's a lot of scuffling going on between Dan and Mouth and Rollins, and not all of it looks all that great. And I felt like it was a little bit drawn out. So what I did was I cut out a big chunk of it. So after Dan hits Mouth and pushes him off to the side, I basically cut out to the point where Dan begins his assault on Rollins, where he grabs him or blocks a hit, pushes him away, and then that sets up Dan to be ambushed by TT from behind. All right, so we're up to the point here now where Dan has successfully kind of beaten back Mouth and Rollins again, and TT's now come up behind him. He's grabbing him, and then Dan's going to have to knee him in the face and keep fighting Mouth and Rollins. So I want to point out something here. And this is something that we're going to discuss more later in the lesson about wild lines. But it's nice to keep your characters talking during a fight if possible. It grounds the characters and continues to anchor who's on what side, who's good, who's bad, and also kind of gives you an idea of their level of aggression or fear or any other sort of emotion that they might be experiencing. So basically, it keeps the audience connected to the characters throughout the course of a fight. Sometimes it can be dangerous during a fight that you might find that your audience loses a sense of your character's personalities, and it becomes a little bit too, I guess you could say, sterile and choreographed and rigid, more like you're watching some sort of dance performance rather than witnessing an actual fight happening in front of your eyes. And at least in this particular situation, we're not going for dance performance, we're going for actual fight. So to that end, it is nice to have them speak when possible. So I wanted to point out that we have this shot here, right, of TT coming up behind Dan and grabbing him. Now, I'm going to play what we have here from 10M take 2, the medium angle, and then I'm going to play something else after that. So check out first what we currently have. All right, so there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's good motion, it's good choreography, the acting's good, and it looks pretty cool. All right, so check out this shot.
Come here, you piece of shit, fucking punk.
All right, so that's TT, right? He's saying, "Come here, you piece of shit, you fucking punk." Great line. Keeps him the aggressor, keeps Dan in jeopardy, and kind of continues to give the viewer an idea of who's doing what and who's on what side. So I'd like to include that line if possible. And it doesn't necessarily need to be tied to this particular camera angle. We could cheat that line underneath a different camera angle if this isn't the angle that we wanted to use. But either way, let's see how we can incorporate that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just drop that shot with that line down into here. And then we'll deal with the mess that it creates.
Come here, you piece of shit, fucking punk.
So I actually like this angle on the arm twist, so I think we'll probably keep that. But I prefer this wide shot of him being grabbed by TT. So what I'm going to do, and this is definitely where you can take some liberties with editing, and you could also get yourself into trouble if your cheats are bad, but I think we can probably pull this off. So I'm going to cover this with the wide shot at first, even though his line's here, and he's not actually speaking.
Come here, you piece of shit.
All right. And I'm going to push all this back a little bit.
Come here, you. Come here, you piece of shit. Fucking punk.
Doesn't bother me. I don't know about you, but it seems pretty natural, and I can't really get a sense that he's not actually speaking. I think I do want to make sure that the medium here and the medium close, though, flow smoothly into each other.
here, you piece of shit, fucking punk.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. Great. So we're gonna cut out then. I'd like to cut out. Actually, we punch back into the medium close up here for the arm twist, which is nice because it shows you what he's doing. I want to punch back out to this medium type of angle when he knees him in the face, just so it's super obvious what's happening. I really like what's going on here, and that's from 10M take 2, the medium shot. But let's check out a couple other takes just to make sure that's the best version of the knee to the face. Specifically, the one I have marked, which is 10M take 1. And I see why I marked this, because you got Erica sitting here watching the fight, which is all the better. Continues to keep her emotionally involved in the action. Oh, plus that's a better shot on the knee, right? It looks like more of an impact. And you can really clearly see what's going on. You see TT fall to the ground. You see Dan reset himself to continue engaging the other two opponents. So, for many reasons, it's a superior take. So, this is what we'll be using. 10M take 1. So, he twists the arm, comes back up. And then begins the knee.
Punk.
Roll this back a couple, or forward a couple frames.
Punk.
Nice. Cool. That was a good find, that line. I'm glad we came across that because, like I said, it really does kind of make a pretty big impact at the end of the day, having your character speak like that. All right, so let's get rid of the other angle on the kick that we don't need. All right, I'm going to go back to speeding things up a little bit, and I'll explain things as I'm going through them. All right, so what you can see in this section is basically just me going through. After Dan knees TT in the face, he then engages Mouth and Rollins again. So I'm just adding a couple different angles here and there to spice things up a little bit, going pretty much in between the medium close versions and the medium versions of each of these fight moves. Usually going into a medium close on something like a wrist grab or a punch, and then cutting back out to a medium to connect to the next shot. We go through the point where Mouth gets chopped in the throat by Dan. I have a couple different angles on that. And we ultimately end up here at the point when Dan is about to begin his flip with Rollins. And that's where we're going to pick back up together. And I will show you how I'm going to handle this. So we've done a few things here. I'm just going to go ahead and play everything that we just edited up until this point. So we can just kind of refresh ourselves on where we are.
We got our money now, just leave us alone.
Get in the fucking warehouse, motherfucker. Now. Wait. Hey, oh, get up, you fucking piece of shit. Come here, you piece of shit, fucking punk.
All right, so here we are. That's all looking pretty good. There's a couple things I want to point out that may have bumped for you as you were watching. Namely, there's some color correction issues. You can tell that right here, like when we had TT cutting into a medium close-up shot of him kicking Dan onto the ground. The color's a little bit off, and it's causing it to feel jumpy. But we're going to be correcting that later on in another lesson. So not something to worry about. Just try to ignore it, and just focus on whether or not the movement works and whether or not the content itself of the shot works, which I think it does. So anyway, here we are. We're up to the point where he's just finished blocking Mouth and then hitting Mouth in the throat. And Now Rollins comes in to attack him, and then Dan flips Rollins onto the ground. So that looks pretty cool as is, but I think we can make it cooler. We have a bunch of nice angles on the flip. So let's see what we can do to spice it up a little bit. All right, so right now we're on 10 end, take 2, a medium shot. So let's look to see what it looks like if we punch into a medium close-up of this same move. And actually 10 end, take 1, the medium close-up, is something that I found to be pretty cool. So let's see how this looks. This is 10 end, take 1, medium close-up. It's pretty cool. Let's see. And this will be a little bit of trial and error to see, you know, what the best way and what the most interesting way of combining these different angles is. So let's just start by cutting in this medium close-up. My instinct tells me that what we're going to want to do is start wide or medium, punch in to closer, and then pull back out to a little bit wider to finish up the move. So medium, medium close, medium. So as he starts to flip him, right about here is where we'll cut into the medium close. What's going on? All right. So we'll use our little waveform trick here just to quickly get some stuff lined up a little bit better. Because the moves, even though these aren't identical takes, these are different takes, the waveforms will be similar since the similar events are happening. They're probably grunting around the same time and whatnot throughout the course of the flip. All right, that's pretty cool. All right, now let's check out the medium shot that I'm kind of thinking that we might want to go to finish up and show him landing. So it's this one right here. It's 10 end, take 1, medium. So let's see where we want to pick it up. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe when Rollins is upside down. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It works well. All right, there might be a problem though, and this will be a good learning point. So the next move we have to go into. All right, so now in isolation, this looks very cool. The flip is energetic and it's interesting to watch, and it makes sense. It looks realistic. So the next thing that we have to lead into though is TT hitting Dan over the head with the bottle. And this is something that we had talked about a little bit earlier in the blocking in lesson, that there's a bit of a teleportation between TT on the ground and TT hitting Dan with a bottle. And that's something that we're going to have to deal with right now. So let's start by getting Dan, let's get these shots connected. A shot of Dan turn around looking at TT, maybe in a medium close with TT approaching him. And then we'll figure out kind of how we're going to make this transition. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but you'll understand as we go through it. Let's do 10 end, take 2, the medium close-up. Let's see what this one has. Yeah, I marked this one because I think I liked the fact that it kind of isolated Dan in the frame, which is going to allow us to have TT move around the scene in maybe not such a continuous fashion, aka we can get him to come up off the ground and start approaching Dan without necessarily having to show him on the ground getting up, because he won't be in frame at all during this particular shot. It'll be a nice bridge. So let's drop this down. This is going to be the shot that directly precedes the bottle smash. Yeah, I mean, that works. Maybe there's a little bit too much tail on it, but Yeah, that works great. All right, so now the issue is, how do we get from here with TT on the ground to TT attacking Dan? And it might be as simple as just this one shot here of Dan turning around. Maybe that's going to be enough. I don't know. Let's see. So TT's on his hands and knees here. He's got the bottle. And now here he's completely down. Let's see. What if we just go from this medium shot, right, of him starting the flip, to 10N take 1, a medium close-up shot of him finishing the flip, and perhaps he turns around and looks in TT's direction after this. No, he doesn't. That's too bad. What about 10N take 2? Maybe we can get basically a medium close-up on the flip. Yep. You see, so basically what we're going to need to do to combine these shots, or to connect these shots, I should say, I think, is take the shot that already nicely transitions into the bottle smash and use this as our medium close-up on the flip. And luckily the timing actually worked out pretty nicely too. All right, let's see how this looks. I'm going to get rid of these other two shots for the time being and roll out this audio. Yeah, it works pretty good. And you can see our waveform here tells us that it's about 2 frames off as far as being completely accurate. Yeah, so it was nice to have all those other angles, the wide, the medium going into the medium close and then back out to the medium. That was kind of cool, and it really showed us a lot of information about the flip, which is a neat move. But unfortunately, it created more problems than it solved in this particular context, namely with TT's continuity. So this is a little bit cleaner, and I think it's going to ultimately work better for us. So this is what we're going to go with. It'll just be a medium shot of him starting the flip, into a medium close of him completing it, and then he goes right into turning around to look at TT as he gets smashed with the bottle. All right, let's keep going. I might clean up this audio tiny bit. All right. So now we're into bottle smash territory. Now, in this section here, I simply just want to add, and this is purely for style, a couple extra angles on him getting hit over the head with the bottle. And we're literally going to repeat the smash maybe 3 times, really to accentuate the movement and extend the time period during which it occurs. So you can see all the bottle smash shots are here, or you could sort for them. So let's go with some more of these slow-mo overcrank shots. So 10Q, take 1, medium close-up. That's cool. So we'll go smash from one angle, smash from another, smash from another, basically. And this will take a little bit of finessing to figure out this timing, since it's gonna be a little bit of a stylistic lack of continuity thing going on. So let's see how this looks, just with two smashes. You know, it's actually fine. I don't know if we need another smash. Maybe it'll just be smash, smash, and then continuation of the recovery, or the impact. Smash, smash. Yeah, let's roll this back a little bit. Yeah, all right, that's cool with me for now. All right. So the first additional shot I really want to add here. That's nice, the block from Dan. Yeah, the first additional shot I want to add is TT being hit by this punch. Because Dan's really kind of giving it everything he has right now, and you really want to kind of, if we have a close-up or a medium close or something like that on TT, it's going to kind of show that Dan really socked him, and it would make sense why Dan might be able to, you know, come back and win the fight at this point. So the scene or the shot that I found that I think accomplishes that nicely, it's all in this action bracketing from the bottle smash to the Dan spin kick. It's 10 AF take 3. It's a medium close-up, and it's going to be on TT's reaction from getting hit. So it's not a direct, it's not a front shot on TT showing his face, but it is it is a nice angle that shows the amount of force being generated by Dan's punch. So and that's really the message that we're trying to get across right now. So let's see, where do we drop this in? And I'll just point out too, this is the stunt guy in this shot right here, and that's actually the actor in this shot here. But again, they did a great job finding really similar lookalikes, so not too much of a problem. All right, let's drop it in right here, see how it goes. A little quick. It's tough when our audio isn't finished quite yet because it sounds like garbage, basically. Let's see. I'm finding it a little bit distracting, to be honest with you, for this particular transition and move. So I'm going to clean up the audio a bit more than I normally would. Let's see, what's this look like if we extend it out a little bit? Oh. Yeah, actually that's nice. Shows Dan starting the kick. Which is good, because the stuntman also performs the kick here. So if we can make it seem even more like Dan is actually doing it himself, all the better for that one. You can see in the take of Dan, the actor, he just spins in place. And this is Dan the stuntman actually performing the kick. All right, great. So we'll start him spinning. And then maybe when he's right about here, we'll cut into the actor, or I'm sorry, the stuntman. That's pretty smooth. I think I might want a little bit of action overlap though on this one, because it's such a cool move. I mean, it's really the pinnacle of the entire fight. So I might overlap the spin. AKA, he might perform a part of the spin more than once. He'll perform part of it in this shot. He'll spin a little bit further, and then it'll actually backtrack a little bit here, and you'll pick up a couple frames sooner than where you actually left off. So you'll see the same part of the motion 2 times. I'm sure you guys have all seen that in different movies, or you've either used it yourself in your own cutting. But it's a nice way to extend the length of time that something, a cool move or an interesting shot or something like that takes place. See, the actual spin now feels a little bit longer. We extended it by maybe four frames or so, and the whole thing feels more impactful and not as rushed. Great, that looks good. And I'll tell you right now, ultimately, I'm going to add a wide shot later on of TT hitting the ground back from our establishing shot that we had played with earlier. I think it was scene 10E, maybe, is what it was. But we'll add that later on in the wide shot lesson. So for now, we're just going to kind of leave this as is and not really show TT hitting the ground because we don't have good coverage on him from any other angle other than the wide shot hitting the ground. I'm going to pull up one additional shot. Scene 10T, take one, and it's just a nice shot of just Dan kind of like turning around after he finishes kicking ass here. All right, so somewhere in between these two shots, we're going to have, a nice shot of TT crashing onto the pavement. And that's about it. We went through and we kind of added a nice array of additional shot information as well as energy to this whole fight simply by adding new camera angles and smoothing out the existing ones that we already had. So let's take a quick look at everything that we've cut together so far.
We got our money now, just leave us alone.
Get in the fucking warehouse, motherfucker. Now. Wait. Hey, I'll get you. Get up, you fucking piece of shit. Come here, you piece of shit, fucking punk.
Alright, so for your homework, you'll want to sit down and add any additional camera angles to your scene that you think you might need. Remember the 3 goals that you want to keep in mind. The first is to fix any jump cuts. The second is to clearly tell the story. And the third is to liven it up a bit. You'll need to have this done before moving on to the next lesson. This is where the scene is going to really start to take shape and tell an exciting story. So give your shot choices a little bit of thought and spend some time making sure that you like how things are flowing. We'll be tweaking the picture a bit more later in the course, but it's a good idea to still get it working pretty well at this stage. And as always, in case you get stuck or you run into some trouble, remember that you have the cheat sheet available to you. In the cheat sheet folder, the updated QuickTime will show you what my cut looks like after completing this lesson, and you'll be able to use the burned in source file names and timecodes to locate and match the exact shots I'm using if you choose to do so. And last, if you'd like to view the full uncut screen capture that shows the entire process of me editing this particular section of the course in real time with no time-lapsed editing, you can find these QuickTimes located in the Lesson Resources folder for this lesson. In the next lesson, cleaning up the rough cut, we're going to go back through our rough cut and refine it a little further. We'll be smoothing out the transitions, and we'll also be taking a look at the flow and the pacing of the scene, and retiming our shots to start crafting the edit into something a little bit more polished. Alright, I'll see you in a bit.